So this is for Christine and David. In reflecting on submitting with the journal, what do you think makes it a valuable platform for sharing historical research and stories?
All right. Well, first of all, although my career was as an academic historian, I've also been a community historian for just about my entire working career, as well as holding university positions. I was active in historical societies and the National Trust, and I think that's reflected in my attitudes towards the journal and why I think it is valuable. First of all, as already has been pointed out, it's a very old journal. It was around publishing Australian history when there was no other journal in the country that was doing so. It was the only place that serious historians, whether they be professional historians or so-called amateurs, could send their work and to have it read by other people who had similar interests. So that means that the journal, even today, is well known. We now have far more history journals than was the case in the early 1900s or even in the 1950s, 60s and 70s. There are many historical journals now. And although academic historians would tell you that the Journal of the Royal Australian Historical Society in terms of status is perhaps not as high as some of the others, it's still well regarded, it's well respected, and it's a place where particularly early career historians and historians working outside academia can send their work, have it peer reviewed, as has already been pointed out, and have it read perhaps by far more people than would be the case with some of the best known academic journals. So it does have this wide readership. The other point I'd like to emphasise is that it has a tradition which goes back quite a long time now of publishing the work of historians early in their careers. So it's especially important for postgraduate students. It's also important for professional historians who are working outside academia, who are sometimes doing consultancy reports and other pieces of work where they want to have at least some of that work published. And that has, I think, appeared in the journal from time to time. It was important for me because, as already been said, that the journal published my very first academic article. It was in 1977. I should add that it took 2 years to get published, but that was very common with journals at that time. I'd just finished my PhD thesis at the Australian National University. I was working in my first academic job at the University of Western Australia. I had a 1-year appointment, which later on became a 2-year appointment, but it was quite rightly pointed out to me by my mentors and some of the more senior colleagues that I had that I needed to publish. If I was going to get a secure position, I needed to publish. So I started off publishing bits of my thesis, which is what often is the case with young historians who are beginning. And what happened with the Journal of the Royal Australian Historical Society was that I sent an article which was based on the first chapter of my thesis, which was a biography of an early federal politician called Littleton Groom. And the editor of the journal, who was then Hazel King, who's already been mentioned, who was an academic at the University of Sydney, but also very active in the society, she wrote back to me and said it was accepted. And in those days, if there was peer review, it wasn't something you were told about. It was a very different system, whereas the peer review system we've been hearing about has come in a bit later as far as the journal is concerned. So just to finish, I believe that the journal still has this very important role in terms of the way in which historians publish their work. You find these days that perhaps fewer senior historians are putting articles in it, but it is producing some very innovative and interesting stuff, which is coming from historians who are beginning their careers or who are about midway through their careers. And I'll hand over to you, Christine.
Can you hear me? Yeah, of course, as Sam mentioned, am the review editor, and we haven't touched on that yet, but I'm going to come back to some other points soon. But that is one of the great things, that we publish reviews. And we publish reviews of publications which are often outside the academy. They are scholarly publications, they are learned publications, but A lot of people wait for a long time to get reviews, and they wait with bated breath. But we are fearless in our reviews, but at least these days they come through pretty quickly. So that's one of the big things about one of the big attributes, I think, of the journal. But as Emeritus Professor, the late Emeritus Professor Brian Fletcher noted, in much writing, many opinions, the making of the Royal Australian Historical Society, 1901-2001, at a time when British cultural influences were dominant and Australia's past was often downplayed by academics and school teachers, the journal did much to stimulate interest in Australian history. It became a major research tool as well as an important source of information. You know, I don't think that's changed. It continues to offer a unique and a valuable platform for sharing historical research. It has that long-standing reputation, the peer review process that we've talked about, and that is so important because that validates, in a way, what people have done. It gives status to the publication and to the article that's been published. And the journal has a commitment to fostering scholarly discourse on Australian history. It is a publication deeply rooted in the Australian historical community, not just the academic community, but those who relish and enjoy the study of Australian history in all of its manifestations. And that's one of the really important things. There is the opportunity for local historians to have their work published. It allows scholars to share their work with the wider audience, not just simply those who are, again, perhaps in the academy, but it allows people to share with their peers and for people to share their knowledge and their findings. And it appeals to the broad, I'd say that the enthusiasts, in academics most assuredly, but enthusiasts who are passionate about Australian history, who are interested in where Philip took his first belief. Children, young children, engage with that in a way that you know, you can't believe if you tell them a little story like that about something that's just a little bit wicked. Their little eyes light up and they love history. And I think that's one of the things that we have to do in terms of engaging with history. But it is an invaluable forum for the ongoing development of Australian historical thought.